Buying a home, it's supposed to be the American dream, right? The ultimate goal. But for so many people, it turns into this high-stakes emotional gauntlet that's just filled with anxiety, pressure, and, way too often, regret. So today, we're going to dig into the intense psychological stress of the modern housing market and, more importantly, how you can get through it without losing your mind or your savings. Let's kick things off with a number that pretty much tells the entire story.
Okay, let's just start with a number that might just stop you in your tracks. Over 75%. That's more than 3 out of every 4 recent first-time homebuyers who have regrets about the house they bought. I mean, think about that. That's not a small minority. That is a massive majority.
So, you have to ask the big question here. How does this happen? How does the biggest financial decision of most people's lives end so often with this deep feeling of regret? Well, let's unpack all the forces that are at play.
First, we've got to understand, this isn't just some fleeting case of buyer's remorse. No, this regret is real, it's widespread, and it's way, way more intense for people who are new to the whole game.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the contrast. You see that a pretty significant 60% of repeat buyers, people who have done this before, feel some regret. But look what happens with first-timers. That number just skyrockets. Clearly, that lack of experience in such a high-pressure situation makes a huge, huge difference.
So what is it that's creating this high-pressure situation to begin with? Well, the answer really lies in all these external market forces that are just turning up the heat on every single buyer out there. It's a real pressure cooker.
And this right here illustrates the perfect storm that buyers are facing. You've got major affordability problems, general economic jitters. There aren't enough homes to go around, and when a decent one finally does pop up, you're thrown into this brutal, intense competition. It is the perfect recipe for anxiety.
And all of that external pressure, it creates a really powerful internal driver, FOMO, fear of missing out. And in real estate, this isn't about missing a party. No, it's this crippling fear that if you don't buy right now, you are going to be priced out forever. And that feeling, that urgency, it turns rational people into frantic decision makers.
And when that frantic feeling takes over, well, the consequences are pretty predictable. Your emotional brain basically hijacks the whole process, and it leads to actions that your logical brain will almost definitely regret down the road. So, the proof is right here. A full 36%, that's more than a third of all buyers, flat out admitted that their emotions made them act against their own better judgment. Think about that. They knew it was probably the wrong move, but the pressure was just too intense to ignore.
And you can see exactly how this panicked decision-making plays out in the real world. I mean, this chart is just staggering. 37% of first-time buyers bought the very first home they toured. Now, compare that to the more experienced repeat buyers at 25%. That speed isn't driven by confidence, it's driven by fear.
And the fallout from all this isn't just financial. The emotional toll is absolutely devastating. Nearly half of first-time buyers, 44%, said the process made them feel like a failure. That feeling of losing control over such a major life event can be just incredibly damaging.
Okay, so that's the problem. It's intense, it's emotional, and it is very, very real. But, and this is a big but, it's not hopeless. Now we're going to pivot to the solution. Let's talk about a clear framework for taking back control of the whole process.
Think of these 4 steps as your defense against emotional chaos. First, get an objective perspective. Find someone who isn't caught up in your emotional whirlwind. Second, demand written timelines. This helps restore that sense of control that you can lose so easily. Third, get educated before you're in the hot seat. And finally, create a negotiation strategy. Plan for different scenarios ahead of time so you don't make panic decisions in the heat of the moment.
So, when you put this all together, the core lesson here is a powerful one. It's not about being the fastest buyer in the market, it's all about being the smartest.
So what's the ultimate takeaway from all this? It's really simple. The antidote to the chaos, to the pressure, to the FOMO, it isn't more emotion, it's clarity. A clear plan, clear information, and objective guidance, that is what protects you from making a decision you're going to regret.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to really chew on. Knowing the emotional gauntlet that's waiting for you, are you truly prepared, not just financially, but mentally, to make the biggest purchase of your life? Because being prepared, well, that's the first step to turning that dream back into a reality.